The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Catherine. I'll be your webinar facilitator. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 911 announcement, Major Search Engine and WordPress Changes webinar. As a brief reminder, all lines are currently on mute to prevent background noise. If you have questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them into your chat box. We'll be happy to answer at the end of the webinar. This afternoon, it's my pleasure to welcome back Jennifer Bagley, CEO of CI Web Group. As you know, CI Web is one of our preferred vendors. Jennifer, you may now begin the webinar.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thanks everybody who's joined today. I know you guys are swamped. We're running into the busy season, so we wouldn't have held this and called everybody's attention if it wasn't really, really important, because I know I've already done another webinar this month. But this is going to be a little bit different, so I'm going to prep you in advance. This is not going to be my normal style. It's probably not going to run the full hour, and unfortunately, telling you in advance, it is going to be more technical than I know you guys like. So I'm doing that because there's really no way to get around that. Right now there is a huge, huge, huge initiative that is taking place. The last time the likes of this initiative took place as far as a major technology requirements change within Google's infrastructure and web overall was 2015 and 16. So it's titled 911 for a reason, and I'm apologizing in advance. If it goes technical, it is what it is. So it's important. As I mentioned before, 2015, 2016, there was something in our world that was called Mobilegeddon. For those of you that had a Webmaster account, a Google Webmaster account, your Google Analytics account, were registered businesses on Google's business listing, you got notified of a recommended change, a modification of future requirements to come, of boom, now a requirement which was called mobile responsive. Google gave multiple notifications to companies advising them this is important, this is important, this is going to require you to reconstruct your entire world, your entire website, your digital infrastructure, your digital footprint, your content, and everything else. It's going to require you to change all of that. And if you don't, when the initiative or recommendation becomes a requirement, and Google re-ranks all of the websites on the internet, those who are not compliant will be penalized and their rankings will drop, therefore impacting their overall traffic, their phone calls, i.e. your sales and your money. That was 2015. 2018, we're here again. So the number of changes between 2015 and 2018 are vast. There was probably hundreds and hundreds of changes that occurred, and these are small changes. Very limited. There are things that can be addressed in a maintenance plan for your website, not hosting. Hosting plan is like parking a car in a garage. Your garage doesn't independently perform maintenance and tune-ups and oil changes and so forth on your car. Neither does a hosting plan for a website. So under normal circumstances, between 2005 and 18, there might have been 100 maintenance or more tasks that took place each year. In a maintenance plan, not a parking garage. Same thing with you guys in air conditioning and heating systems, right? 2018, this is when there is a recall on the car that says this car's airbags will fail on deployment, the brakes don't work, and the gear shifter doesn't work, and when you put it in reverse, it actually goes forward, and when you put it in forward, it actually goes in reverse. That's what kind of a change this is. So I don't have a better analogy than that, which is similar to the 2015 Mobilegeddon. That was the car is going to implode. I need you to recall it and get a new one. 2018, that's where we are. So before you get frustrated with Google and Google's just trying to squish us and hurt us and so forth, no. This is people. This is your friends, your family, your kids, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters. This is people. As consumers evolve, Google changes its requirements. Why? Because consumers rule. The buyer rules, right? We've heard that. The buyer rules. The buyer's always right. And in this instance, if they start adapting technology and watches and AI devices, and they start using Google Home and Siri and Alexa, and they start wearing a watch and talking to their wrist, and they start searching on their device by tapping a Bixby button and saying, hey Bixby, what's the best air conditioning replacement company in the Seattle, Washington area with the best reviews online? When these things happen, when consumer habits change, when your friends, your family, your relatives, the people in your neighborhood, your church, your community, when people change, Google changes. Requirements evolve. When requirements evolve, companies, business owners like you who adapt win. That's how this works. So, hopefully, and this is a mindset thing, those who see this as frustrating, I just got a new website, I don't want to redo it all, and so forth, all of those things are valid, and I understand the frustration, but in this environment, it doesn't help. It doesn't help progress. It doesn't help move you forward if that's your reaction to this. So I tell you that because I know it's a natural reaction to be frustrated when things change, and definitely frustrated if you have to spend more money on something that you already spent money on. So get it, try and get over it quickly, move it to the side, and then move on so that we can make progress instead of degrade as this takes place. This is normal, okay? Changes in Google's environments are normal. Changes in consumers' environments are even more normal. Why? Because technology is evolving. So when technology evolves, there's new bells and whistles and widgets and devices and things that make your life easier and your home smarter, your car smarter. Then consumers like to use those things because they're busy, and boom, when that happens, everything around it continues to evolve, and so must you. The only difference is because technology advancements are happening so rapidly, so fast, that you have to evolve faster because the windows are getting shorter. And I'll tell you this, in 2007, I used to stand up and say, how long does a website last? And it was like 10 years. 2012, I said, how long does a website last? I said, 5 years. In 2013, I said, oops, I shouldn't have said that. That was too long, because in 2013, Google started making these changes. Because why? Because cell phone sales between 2007 and so forth, they grew so fast. In a 10-year period, basically everyone you knew now had a smartphone, okay? Now, in today's environment, in a 10-year period, they've been through 10 smartphones, 5 smartphones, 6 smartphones. They're on refresh plans where they get a new smartphone every 2 years. If the consumer gets a new smartphone every 2 years because they're eligible for upgrades, guess what? Your website's on the same timeline. So it is not lasting even 2 years now because of the technology advancements. So mobile first, 2015 versus 2018. 2015 was called responsive web design. That was the requirement in 2015. Essentially what it meant is the code and design of your website needed to be in a blocked format. I'm going to give you the simple version because the true version gives people headaches. But it needed to be in a block format. So when you design and develop a website, and this website was rendered on a 10-inch tablet, 12-inch tablet, 7-inch tablet, whether it was an Amazon or a Samsung tablet or an Apple tablet, or it was a phone and it was a Samsung phone or the Galaxy or the Pixel or the Apple phone, all of these containers were able to shrink, maintain aspect ratio, and stack so that this website rendered properly on this device. That was 2015. 2017-18, mobile first initiative, and this is hard to process sometimes. Essentially what this is the exact opposite of the responsive design, where a website, everything about the website is being evaluated on the mobile first initiative requirements. not how it performs as a website. Thus the term mobile first. When a website is designed, it needs to be designed and developed. This is the coding, and this is the hard part for a lot of business owners. You can't see code. The only thing you see is what's called the presentation layer, which is the outfit that a website wears. What Google is looking at is the structure of the code, the content, the metadata, and then lastly, what's the outfit look like? So it's the opposite. So now we have to develop and design and optimize and structure content for the mobile requirements and user first, which means you need a new website. I talked earlier about the global initiative and why we need to. The population obviously uses the internet. They're obviously active on social media devices like half of their life or more. They use cell phones constantly, which is why we now have rules to turn off your cell phone in movie theaters and don't text and drive and all these other, because they live on these phones. This is why parents have the no phones at the dining table rules, because they take up too much of our family's time, but it is what it is. So the mobile first initiative, the pros of it is content is prioritized above everything else. Content is critical, which means you don't need to have a mass amount of code and a mass amount of design and a mass amount of functionality and bells and whistles and all that stuff. Content is critical, which content writers are not part of a web design and development process. That's a separate expense, which is usually the most important, least budgeted for expense when it comes to preparing a website and continuing ongoing marketing. Allowing you to create a user experience that favors mobile devices, thinking about the site from a mobile phone instead of from a computer. Decreasing download times for the most important aspects of your website. That essentially means less pictures, less images, less heavy items, integrated third-party applications, anything big, any hosted video, all that stuff, it's got to go, which decreases your expenses for a website technically in many ways. And it offers a standardized experience for all platforms. So whatever they experience in on one website to another website to another website, from one platform to another platform, that it's a familiar experience for the consumer. The cons. First con is it takes a lot longer to do this. So getting a website designed and developed, even with technical experts from a mobile first environment, it takes longer. So if you're in a rush, if you're like, I want a website and I want it in 30 days, probably not a good idea to have that thought process. Okay. If you're trying to hire a friend or a family member or a volunteer or the lady in your office or her boyfriend, whatever that is, you probably should avoid that, because these are very technical and experienced experts that have been through years and years and years of technology requirement changes, and hopefully they are partnered and coupled it up with other departments that are all interdependent, like SEO and social media and local listings and content writing and reviews management and so forth, and your server team and your security team. It requires a very different team of people to do this than it does. There's not an individual that's going to be able to do this. You know, Joe, Bob, this is not something just he's going to be able to do. You have to plan for more resources, and this includes a higher budget. I didn't write these. I took them off of another website because it's real, and every website I go to says the same thing. And I understand it because I'm the one that writes all the, the checks for the resources and the labor hours that are required for this kind of project. So, you know, it's very important to you guys. I wanted to show this because this is an example of a company that did not respond in time to the 2015-16 mobile responsive requirements. I want you to see what that turned into: an immediate dip and drop and loss in all traffic. So the companies that didn't respond in 2015, of course, we did the same thing in 15, 16 with our clients is, we send out a notification. Everybody said there's a big change. Google's going to make this change. When it becomes a requirement, you got to be prepared in advance. And a lot of people said, no, I just bought a website. I don't want to reinvest, or I don't want to, or you're just trying to, make another sale or what. It doesn't matter what it is. The answer is always okay. And then when we did the webinar for everyone else, a lot of companies said that their companies, their agencies, their web companies just didn't tell them. They didn't tell them that there was this major change, so they didn't know. And we had companies that were doing in excess of $5 to $10 million in sales literally dropped to less than $1 million in sales for the year, and were never, ever advised about these kind of changes. And they basically said that their companies neglected to tell them or even make it an option for them to be compliant. And what it felt like to them as a business owner is like somebody literally just shut off their phones. If you can imagine going to work tomorrow and your phone systems or your phone lines just being down because you're not compliant, and Google, boom, flip the switch. It's now a requirement. You're not compliant. You get re-ranked. You go to the bottom of the barrel. That's what can happen. So it is what it is. No one loves it. I have to go through the same thing that everybody else does with my own company. So I understand the frustration, but that can happen. You can absolutely be, the guy or gal that's sitting on page 1 of Google for a few thousand search results, and you're performing well. And then tomorrow everything stops because your batch of websites get re-ranked and you're not compliant. So it's time to evolve. The switch to mobile first isn't only in responsive to behavioral changes in the majority of searchers, i.e. people, consumers, customers. Naturally, businesses should position themselves where the business is, but in this case, the shift is not only due to the maturation of the mobile market, but the pending emerging ones as well. So what we're talking about, the things people are already using. They're already using Bixby and Google Home and Amazon Alexa and Siri. Those are already being used all over. It doesn't matter what state you're in. They're already part of people's lives. The emerging ones of the connected consumer are new. Wearable technology, human augmentation, big data interconnectivity, virtual reality, voice control, cognitive intelligence, such as the Technical Aurora project. Without going too far down, we can't get flustered with these small changes that consumers adopted this Christmas, this last 2 Christmases, because the next set of them are huge. So these changes that Google has put into place, I do have an appreciation for the fact that they didn't make the changes just because of the things that consumers already adapted over the Christmas holidays, but they also put the changes in place knowing that the emergent technologies would be adapted extremely fast because consumers are not taking a long time to adapt to new technologies. They're just not. They're picking them up and boom, they're on to the next one. They're used to getting a new phone that functions differently. Now, I'll tell you, oh gosh, I'm not always that person. I just got a brand new so I had an iPhone, the big one, I don't even know the name. And I just upgraded to my Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. Geez, that's a lot to say. And I'll tell you what, I was frustrated because I've had my beautiful iPhone for a long time and it works perfectly for me and it's simple and it's easy, and I just switched over to this, and for the first 5 days I was frustrated upon frustrated, and now the genius of this phone it's truly a smartphone, and I can see it in the smallest and the biggest things that it does, but that process, you're talking about a significant technology change, and a consumer is grabbing them, picking them up, and adapting to them very fast. If you're not that person, that's okay. You're not trying to sell to yourself. You got to sell to everybody else. So if you hate all this stuff, okay, I get it, but that's not who you're trying to design for. You're trying to design for the rest of you humans. The mobile first initiative We have to redevelop every website. We have to re-optimize, completely different. And it takes 3 times as much effort to optimize for mobile than it does for a PC. 3 times as much effort and time. So you got more time, more resources, more budget. We have to design for Google's requirements, which essentially means we're designing for human beings, not buyer personas, not target groups. If you're talking to a traditional advertising company that went to school for advertising and media, they're going to be talking about buyer personas and target groups and all that. All of that does not matter today. They should be talking about the connected consumer. The connected consumer. That is your target market right now. That is the people and their children and their children's children who are utilizing technology to live, to communicate, to research, for comfort, for trust, for third-party endorsement, for information, for knowledge, for power, for shopping, for everything that they do. It is a connected human. That's who your target audience needs to be. If you hear anything outside of that, be careful, because they're probably old school advertising mentality. They went to school. They're still looking at zip codes and and buyer persona pamphlets and all of those things. Just be very, very, very careful. The data available in a digital world, completely different to the data available on the house rolls and tax records. That's all public information. Old school versus new school. So I'm going to give you a handful of things. I'm not going to dive too far into this because I did cover design requirements changes. Go back into the library, look at the I think it was, what month are we in? May, March. I think it was March webinar. Find that webinar, and you're going to have the details on this in a much more bigger overview. But essentially, from a design standpoint, the way to look at this is like when you were a kid and you had that kind of octagon shaped circle, and you had to take the blocks. This is the toddler. You had to take the blocks and you had to shove it in the hole that was the right size, the circle or the rectangle or triangle or octagon. That's essentially how a website has to be designed. It has to be in connected shapes, grid layouts, modularized, modular with white space, has to have a clean and simple UI. X, which is user interface, user experience combined. Vivid gradients. You want to stay away from pictures. You can use 3D for extra depths, exaggerated shadows, but you need to stay away from the real heavy images, real heavy graphics design, things that are not patternable. You got to get rid of everything that you've ever loved when it comes to a website. And you got to go clean, very, very modern, the most modern house, straight lines, clean, clean, clean. That's where it starts. And essentially mobile first, which means you can't have a huge website that is scroll, 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 scroll anymore. It's got to be really simple, simple, clean. You got to be savvy, social, local, and authoritative. Using patterns and textual background or textures instead of background images, things that can go in a chunk of code that's on a repeatable pattern versus this huge, 156 megabyte image. Got to stick to that. This is essentially how we're looking at websites now. We're looking at them when we're designing them just like this. This works. Okay. Same thing with logos. Now logos have to be responsive as well. So you got to have logos that reshape and resize, and you have more than one logo design now. When it comes to development, this matters the most. Your designers can't do anything without the development being on point. Our company spent the last year developing a perfectly coded, I shouldn't say perfect, nothing's perfect. That's not true. A very well coded framework for a mobile first website. It's taken us a year to develop this framework and perfect it for the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, the contractor industry. It's not something people can do. So we can reuse this code over and over and over again, which is great, but it's not something that somebody can do quickly. So don't put a lot of pressure on your agencies to move really fast with that, or you're going to wind up with something that's not well. So on the development side, your site's got to be secure. It's got to load fast, which means it has to have the least amount of code possible. Buying themes off of ThemeForest, buying themes off the internet for 35, 45 bucks that were designed or developed a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, boom, you're already out of compliance. Stay away from that. That's usually going to happen when you're working with somebody who's not an actual developer and they just learned how to put together a theme. They buy it for 35 bucks and put it together off the internet. That's not a good idea. Modularized containers, flexible, dynamic. I'm going to skip the rest because it's in the PowerPoint you guys can go look at. WordPress. WordPress is the largest content management system used to build the majority of websites. WordPress is responding to the Google changes and is launching the largest change, a major change, 5.0. It's out. It launched last week, week before last, something like that. That means everybody who's in an old WordPress theme or site, you're done. Those sites are not compliant. Upgrades, updates, security, performance, every single thing you know or that Google is weighing on is going to be a major problem. You got to get out of those old themes. They're not available because there's just not enough current themes that are available out there on the WordPress market. You got to move into 5.0. Our servers and security team will not allow a website to be hosted on our high secure, high performance servers that is not WordPress 5.0. As of, they basically have about 60 days to upgrade. If they're not upgraded, they got to go to, and I'm sorry to say it, but they're junk servers. They're not high performance, high secure servers because those servers can't have websites that are not compliant on the same server. So they go over to a side server, which basically if you're hosting with any of your kind of junk server, your GoDaddy hosting, your HostGator, HostMonster, Net something, Network Solutions, those are just hosting servers. They're like a garage with no maintenance team. You're going to want to get into a better server and a better website. So the reality is, after I've gone through all of this, you're probably going to need a new website. Your SEO has to be redone and expanded. It's 3 times the work of the current. So a meta description, for example, right now is 140 characters for a web page, one page. In a mobile page, it's 340 or 60 characters. So it's three times the volume of writing that has to be done. And this is only the meta description, not everything else, on every single page on your website that is designed for SEO, search engine optimization. It's the product or service in the target location you want to sell, you want to be found for when somebody's looking. It's got to be redone. So you're going to need time, a budget, resources to be able to move into that. You probably need to move to managed hosting. Not probably. If you're not on a managed hosting, which probably means you're spending $100 a month, on a managed program, on a non-managed program, you might be spending 10. Okay, you need to get moved to a managed. Of course, this can't happen if your website's out of date, because a good security and management company is not going to take an old, out of compliant, insecure website and put it on its server. Probably going to need a bigger budget when it comes to a lot of different areas. You need to make sure you're working with professionals, not volunteers, and not just professionals, but they should be talking to you about these changes, what's occurring in the technology world and with the mobile responsive versus mobile first initiative, and what needs to change. If they're not having those conversations, or they're not making information available to you via webinar or their blog or their knowledge base, then you should be concerned, because you may be working with an agency that is not keeping up with this stuff and making changes. And when you're working with professionals that know what they're talking about, you need to trust them. As much as you have your own ideas, as much as you studied SEO at a previous job 10 years ago, or you worked for Microsoft or whatever it was, that stuff does not matter. And I'll tell you the reason this is important to stress. I hire people all the time that start talking to me about their degree. I interview people, I should say, all the time that come in, and the first thing they want to do is they want to tell me what they learned in school. I don't care at all what they learned in school in this environment, because none of that is relevant. None of it is relevant. I want to know which articles they read last week, yesterday, today, what sites have they tested today, right now. What they learned in school or their experience from 10 years ago does not matter at all. So I'm telling you this because it's important. Things are going to take more time. Don't be in a hurry. It doesn't produce quality results. And I understand, and I love that people want to come in and say, I want it done in 30 days. I want this done in 30 days. I want to be on number 1 in 30 days. Not relative, not logical, not acceptable if you want to get quality results. If you push technical resources that you can't modify the time it takes to get something done, you can't. If you push them, you'll wind up with sub-quality results because speed was more important than quality. So please be very careful. If you've ever gone to business school, they have a triangle that says, do you want quality, do you want price, or do you want speed? And getting all 3 of those probably is, I think the only one that's mastered it in the business books is Walmart. So be careful. And that's at the expense of small companies. So structured data, we've been preaching this for over 1.5 years, saying this is really cool and this is great and you should do this and this is going to give you a competitive advantage, and by golly, it's here. So forget everything that I just said. Yes, it does all those, but now this is a requirement for the mobile first indexing, which means your entire website has to be redeveloped with structured data schema included inside of it. Same thing with AMP, accelerated mobile pages. I push that as exciting. This is new. This is, it's just came out. It's going to put you ahead of the curve. I've been talking about it for over 1.5 years. Boom. It is now part of the mobile first initiative. So this isn't hype on something cool and new and way out there. This is part of the requirements. Content for mobile first, oy, oy, oy. This is going to require a whole different class, but the content on your website actually has to change in a mobile first environment. You can find out more by listening to that webinar I did last month. New SEO, this is an article. They did a great job on this. 8 heartbreaking SEO changes driven by Google's new mobile first initiative, that all SEOs must realize. There's a whole bunch of them I had on here. They did a great job about putting the required. So I had must be secure, fast and powerful servers are required, accelerated mobile pages, schema, structured data. The SEO requirement changes for metadata. We have to restructure all content with call to actions. You need to be in a content management system. You got to get rid of all those things all the code, extra CSS, images, graphics, custom functionality. You got to get rid of those things and make speed, load time your requirement, simplicity, no hidden pages, geo-based titles and page content are critical, which means you're going to have the city on those pages, which means you need more pages if you have more cities. Going with simplex website and complex SEO and content. This is essentially what's going to happen. Google will put mobile users first. Google will punish your website. It will derank it if your website is not designed and developed and content and everything else, all the other requirements, it's going to drop. So what you can expect is when Google gets to your bucket, because it does things, it doesn't re-rank every website in the entire world all at the same time. It re-ranks them in buckets. When yours comes, if you choose not to respond to these things and make these changes, you're going to see traffic fall. It's going to drop. And that's going to mean that the phones are not going to ring as much. And you got to be set up to have sales from somewhere else if you don't take care of this. I'm not trying to scare people, but I am trying to be as real as possible because it's not my first rodeo. All right, high level summary. WordPress, it's new. It's a major release. 5.0, it's big. Gutenberg is huge. You need a new website, and it needs to be on the Gutenberg 5.0. If you have a theme installed, you're not going to be able to just go out there and press update. That is not going to work. Okay. Mobile first indexing is expanding within the next several weeks. Google now requires a higher resolution image for AMP stories and carousels. So what that means, that's accelerated mobile pages. Essentially, you can't use crummy images. If you guys have pictures you took on your cell phone or you're trying to download a picture off Facebook, of course, your own Facebook that you took, of course, you cannot just go to Google and grab random images. You will get a lawsuit from Getty Images. Don't do that. But you got to have a higher resolution, which means you need to pay for either a professional photographer and get those original images, or you need to pay for iStock images and you need to own the license to them. Page speed updates, mobile first indexing are separate. So these are two separate requirements that work together. So just know that they're not all bucketed under the mobile first index. Meta refresh redirects. So essentially what this means, there's a lot of companies that are out there trying to jimmy rig this, the fixes. They're trying to keep the same website and they're trying to recreate a page, redo all the SEO, and then direct the old page to the new one. Let me just tell you this. When Google says not recommended, that means don't do it. Because if what's not recommended now will be a penalty later. 9 times out of 10. So it's not worth it. So if anybody is trying to tell you they're slick and they know how to work around it, I would run. Provide clear and consistent SEO signals. That means your social media, it's got to be on point. Your local listings, they got to be. This word signals means everything that's outside of the SEO world, which is part of SEO. Social media, video, reviews, local listings, engagement, all of those things. SEO is local, is content, is blogging, is SEO, is reviews, is social media, is videos. That's what it is. So you got to have clear, consistent SEO signals, which means you got to be loved, consistent. You got to be current. Content has to be current. It's got to be on point. And it has to be popular. Googlebot cannot crawl custom CSS properties. So let me just be bold with this. If you ask for something to be designed or developed on your website, you want something to look a specific way, and it requires a developer to custom change the CSS, which is called cascading style sheets. If they tell you they don't think that's a good idea, you should absolutely say yes, ma'am, yes, sir. You should listen. Google cannot crawl custom CSS properties. Unfortunately, what that means in your world is if you want to paint a black stripe down your car and you want the door to pop up instead of out, if the mechanic says that's not a good idea, it's going to hurt the site, the performance of it, or the car, it's going to hurt the performance of it, you should say, okay. That's what I do. I say okay because they know better. I don't know what custom CSS is other than it's not standard. But I do know that I've learned my lesson trying to debate with my own developers before. So next, content order, position, and placement matters. So even the way the content is laid out. If you can imagine in a mobile environment, all the fancy stuff you may have on a sidebar. Say somebody enters and they're on the interior page where you're trying to sell air conditioning installation, and you have your call to actions on a sidebar. Those sidebar call to actions are going to go boom way down to the bottom underneath the body content. The body content is going to be stripped from all the code and whatnot. So you need to have a clear call to action very high up in a button format, something clean and clear and clickable within that content. Placement matters. Be very careful how the content is placed. And if you have a website with 1,000 pages, you got a lot of work to do. I don't have a better version than that. Backlinking, SEO and backlinking. Do not buy links. Don't buy backlinking from companies. Don't buy it anymore. We stopped providing link building services in its traditional form in June of 2017, knowing this was going to be here. Before the requirement or even Google mentioned it, we participate so heavily in the initiatives process and development process that we knew it was coming. So every single client that was paying us for link building, we reallocated those funds to something different, to on-page SEO, gave them more key phrases in their plan. We did something different because we knew this was coming. Right now, if you're on an SEO plan with anybody and you're paying for link building services, they should already have been calling you saying, we cannot continue to provide this service. We can refocus our efforts on something different, like on-page extension SEO, adding additional phrases to your plan, stuff like that. But anything else you need to run. If you get the emails from people trying to sell you link building or SEO services and they're from overseas, there's no website, no company, you should run. My business wants to know, Google My Business, it wants to know, when did your business first open? You just log into your Google My Business account or your Google Business Listing account and add that. It needs to know when you opened. And Google's meta descriptions, that was the number, 320 characters. That by itself is a tremendous amount of work. So when it comes to having a major change, that's not covered as a part of a normal SEO plan typically. When there's a significant change, it's going to double your resources. So when it comes to this, you either have time or money. So either you get a login and password to your website and you get instructions on how to extend the metadata requirements to mobile responsive, or you add a one-time budget to have all your existing content updated to the new requirements. Those are your options. So just remember, when it comes to mobile first, it's not just about making a website responsive. It's about the overall user experience on a mobile device. I've included a link on here that has the basic requirements, and I'm going to give you an idea. I'm just going to go to that link real quick because I want you to get an idea of how Google shows. This is inside the developer's requirements for Google. This is what makes Google makes a good mobile site. So it's going to give you examples. This doesn't work. This, you'll notice on our sites, we tend to do this where we'll have multiple buttons show up, but it gives you lots of examples. Okay, so having the menus with the little lines, that's a menu. Having it easy to get back to the home page, tapping a logo to get back to a home page, that's good. Don't let pop-up ads, pop-up garbage, that is not allowable. So if you have pop-ups that are hovering, trying to get somebody to download an app or sign up for an email newsletter, you're going to get rid of those. Having this full width, well, you guys are not e-commerce, so let me come back. Again, this is essentially let users explore before they commit. So if somebody goes to your website, don't immediately be like, sign up right now to get a $25 promotion towards your next service. You need to let them browse before they make a commitment, and they need to choose to make the commitment or convert, not you push them into converting with a pop-up. Okay, so this just gives you kind of an examples, minimize form errors. So being able to choose input styles, this whole forms entry, we're compliant because we started way early. 2 years ago, we started redoing the way that we have forms on our website and pushing people to use a secondary CRM service for all of our forms on our sites. But but you want to be really careful. You've got secure forms, that they are responsive layout forms, and they're not interruptive. So just kind of giving you an idea, doing your research. There's a lot of stuff out there you can look at. Let's see here. And that link is on the PowerPoint. Resource dependencies. So who you hire matters now. Your priorities, they change. So first priority, which usually is what no one wants to pay for, is your high-end hosting, maintenance, management, backup, and security team. No one wants to pay. This is something they think is not important. I can get hosting for $10. Just be careful. This should be your number one priority now. You need a high-end, robust server. Second is making sure you get into the new Gutenberg WordPress 5.0. Next, making sure you're hiring a mobile-first developer, mobile-first layout and UIX designer, not UI designer, mobile-first ongoing copywriter that you have resources on point on your team, mobile-first SEO engineer, local reviews, SEO, and or social media and video, that you have progressive marketing strategy for these things. These are your social signals that are required for SEO. So SEO does not exist without local reviews, video, and your social progressive marketing strategy designed on and connected to a mobile first website. All right, so mobile first initiative, it's got to be done. That's how consumers are searching. And if we don't meet their requirements, if we don't meet them where they are, they'll just keep searching. You won't be an option. The hardest part of this priority is everybody wants their own personal perception and preferences and past to drive their future, and it's the worst thing we can do. Consumer behaviors and preferences and their future, that matters. Search engine requirements, that matters. Technology and emerging technology advancements, that matters. Technical expert advice, that matters. Reality is as real as gravity. Those who want to survive and thrive will not need much convincing. A lot of times this word takes up so much of a project time. That's actually what slows a project down, is trying to convince and convince and convince. And I know that happens because a lot of companies have, a lot of people have been burned by agencies, and therefore their trust level is at the bottom of the barrel. If you're working with an agency that knows what they're talking about, please be careful and don't make them spend all their time trying to convince you instead of working, because you're losing valuable and precious time that you need focused on the right things. All right. There's kind of two mindsets that happen when it comes to this. One is graceful degradation. That's those businesses that will gracefully bow out. And two, the mindset of progressive enhancement. I am always going to lean towards progressive enhancement. That's exciting. I get excited about working with, those groups, and I love seeing business owners conquer the world and accomplish their personal and their professional goals and see their businesses thrive year over year over year. And those are the ones doing the right things in the right order at the right time. They're also the ones that know what's working and they do more of it. They know what's not working and they reallocate it to something that is, and they know what's next. What do we need to do next? What do we need to do next? And that's how their mindset sits. And when they come to these kind of webinars, they show up, they suit up, they participate, they're ready to rock and roll. They know that their response to these kind of changes, it's bigger than them, and that it will impact their business now and in the future. And so they make some good decisions. And I have a huge level of appreciation for that, but I also have a huge level of appreciation just for knowledge, knowing you guys have two different ways to go through this. This is my dad on the left, my son on the right. They're both on the same roller coaster. It's scary. Their stomach is in their throat. I understand. One chose to smile and always does. The other one quite hasn't learned that technique yet, but he's getting there because he knows I show this in 5,000 presentations a year. So he's trying to smile on roller coasters regardless of if his stomach is in his throat now. All I'm saying is you guys have a choice. So if you guys want to talk, I know you're busy. And this is like my kids. They're always busy. I'm always busy. but I have to force myself to make time for the things that matter, and this one does. So I hope you take advantage of a free strategy session with one of our amazing concierges and business strategists, either Beverly or Tom or Lisa or Clay, anyone from our strategy team, Mandeep or Joseph and so forth. Please schedule time with these guys, and they will help do an analysis of where you are. And if you're a current client, same thing. You should go through this. You can't sit in the same stuff either. I'm talking to you too. So get the analysis done. Let's get a plan in place. Let's prioritize it. Get some action. Get some things in motion through the summer, and get ready. Then in your shoulder season, you'll have a little bit more time to dedicate to this, but there's things we can do without you. So I know you guys are busy. Get those things into progress, into place. Like right now during the summer, you guys should be spending your time on reviews, acquisition. Why? Because you're the busiest and you have the most opportunities to collect as many reviews as you can. Now's the time to do that. Don't wait and wish you had until the end of the season. Don't act like you're too busy, because I'm telling you, it matters. It's going to matter, and you don't want to wish you had. With that, Miss Catherine, I did keep it under an hour, but not quite as much as I wanted to.
All good. It's all good. So just a couple quick reminders. If you have questions, go ahead and use your chat box. We'll be happy to answer your questions now. You will receive a follow-up email a little bit later today with a link to the recording. So there was a lot to digest from this. I'm sure you're going to want to refer back to it. You'll have that automatically in your email. And of course, there is a post-webinar survey, so definitely feel free to let us know how we did. So a few questions here waiting. One is, can you go back over the difference between mobile responsive versus mobile first? What's the difference exactly?
The 27 slides. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, oh man, the simple version is this, right? In the mobile responsive, we had to design and develop. So this is what you see is the clothes. It's like looking at a human. If you're only looking at what they're wearing, then this is what we did, is we made a really wide human. I don't know. And then this one had to be able to shrink down, and we had to be able to scale it down, and it had to resize itself. Now we actually have to code, which if you're on a website and you click any website and you click and say view page source, what you see is the outfit. That's just the outfit. What actually is behind a website, I'm just giving you an example. This is what a developer sees. You just see what a designer does, which is the pretty pictures, and a content writer, which is text. But this is actually what a website is built with. So everything in this has to change. In addition to that, the metadata, which is the labeling. So you'll see right here, the labeling on these pages, there's only a certain amount of content that's in the description here. On a mobile search, if I pull this up on a mobile search, this ... this one right here, this is old SEO. There's only 140 characters here, which was what was required previously. This page has ... If I drill into this page, there's actually 360 characters available for meta description. That has to change. Titles, metadata, descriptions, making sure you have geo-targets. Everything that I just covered is basically the difference between mobile responsive, which means you build a full-blown website that has to shrink, and mobile first, which means you build a little mobile website that has the ability to expand. So when you build this, you might have to scroll 3 times. When it expands, it's not going to be a huge website that you have to scroll and scroll and scroll, because we designed it for mobile first. Whereas here, it might be really long and then shrink down to even really long on a mobile phone. It's the opposite. We need to keep it, it's going to be short when you're looking at it on a PC, a little bit longer when you're looking at a mobile device, but we don't want it too long as well. So it's everything from content, design, images, graphics, layout, structure, code, everything.
Perfect. I love it. Just everything. Okay, so kind of going back over the time expectations, you mentioned that it's much longer to develop a website using the mobile first. How much time would somebody expect it to take for their mobile first website to be built?
So I'm not going to be able to answer that for every company. What we did in preparation for this is we developed a theme, which for Goodman and Amana, we spent years. Every year we develop a new theme based on the new requirements. So we have a development team specifically designed for this. And for the last year, we've been preparing for this. So for us, it takes around 60 days, and it depends on the volume of content. The only things that modify how long a website gets done for us are these. So one is you. If you as a business owner don't participate, don't show up, don't suit up, don't respond, don't approve, change your mind 100 times, you can impact a website pipeline more than anybody. The second thing is going to be content. How much content? If you have a 25-page website, then you might be looking at a 60-day website project. If you have a 2,000-page website, you might be looking at a 1-year project. So that depends, because every single page of content causes more labor, more time, more resources. Another thing that will adjust timelines is going to be, when do you guys get your website project started? If all of you wait until March, when your accrual funds are going to be expiring with your manufacturer, then you are going to go at the peak season. I know you're getting into your season, but it's the peak season for a web company. So if the web company's pipeline, quadruples during 1 month, that's going to extend your web project timeline, because you waited until every single company's accrual funds are all due at the exact same time. Those kind of things. So that's a hard one to answer, other than it depends. If you're working with an agency who didn't pre-develop a mobile first theme, you could be looking at a 6, 7, 8 month project for them to start from scratch.
Okay, great.
That's
and then I think the last question is, can you talk about why backlink building is not allowed anymore?
So I'm not saying backlink building is not allowed. I'm saying it shouldn't be bought, it should be earned. Okay, so a true backlink should come from my company. I had a group of our team that we went out over the holidays, and our company did, we went to some local nonprofits and we fed homeless people for 3 days. We got a write-up in a newspaper did an article, and we had a blog on our website talking about our volunteer day feeding homeless at this particular shelter, and boom, we're in a newspaper and they link back to the article on our website. That's a valid backlink. For you guys, let's say you go to the university and you post jobs on the university's websites. Those are valid backlinks. As long as you have the jobs posted on your site and on a university website, they're linking back to your site, that's valid. If you go to a Chamber of Commerce website and the Chamber's website is horrible, you don't want that backlink. So that's not something you want. You want good quality backlinks from good quality websites. If you get listed on a directory site, let's say it's HVAC website directory, and let's say that they tell you it's the most amazing thing on the planet, you got to be on this listing. We've got a magazine that circulation is 40,000 people. Woohoo! If that website only gets 10 unique visitors and they give you a backlink and it's actually a bogus site, but they hype it up, that can hurt you, not help you. So it's not just that you shouldn't buy backlinks from an agency that's just randomly getting them from all over the internet or overseas. You should earn them. And then when you earn them, you still have to be careful and make sure that it's coming from a quality friend.
Perfect.
Pretend like your website's your children. You want them to hang out with good people.
Hilarious. Well, that's all that I have at this point in time. So thank you so much for going through all of that. We really appreciate it. Always so much to learn. Anything you'd like to say in closing today?
I know that this probably gave you a headache, and I apologize in advance. I don't make the rules, I just abide by them, and I love you all. We're going to have a killer season. Thank you.
We love it. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We always appreciate your time. And it's definitely getting hot out there. So for everyone who took time out of your busy schedule, whether you're here live now or later on the recording, we do appreciate your time as well and look forward to talking to you on another webinar soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.